All right, welcome
Behave now.
everybody. We are on the 5 second rule and we are on chapter 5. We're going to be talking about everyday courage. Now, before we get started, I'm going to ask, what did you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 your way into doing this past week? Anybody have anything they want to share?
Five,
All
four,
sorts.
three, two, one. Help the next person.
Help the next person. Yes. Been helping a lot of people.
Yes.
I'm reading this book and I'm a little bit ahead of you guys, like many, many chapters. And she was talking about choices. Oh, what? You guys making faces?
Jeff.
I am actually, I'm ahead because I got this from our regional Nick. So I've been reading it. So it talks about, changes in your life, making choices and setting your day up and like not letting your day control you, but you controlling your day. So this morning, because I was reading this yesterday, I 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 my way out of bed a half an hour earlier than my alarm. And
Nice.
she said, it's really hard. And she's right. It's really hard. But the amount of energy that it takes to get out of bed, like for instance, is quadruple what it takes once you're out of bed. So if you can get over that hump. So that's what she's talking about. If you can get over that initial, like, God, I gotta get to the gym. If you can get yourself up and there, then the energy that it takes to do that, later is. So that's what I did this morning, half an hour before my alarm.
I know. And you were like up, Adam, and engaged. Like she's been like blowing up my phone all morning, chatting away with everybody. So, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what time are you up, Lori? Just out of curiosity.
5:30.
Okay.
Well, because Delaney, when she goes to school, she's got to get up at 6 because it comes early. So 5:30. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm good. I'll be napping about 2:00.
That's what I was going to say. That you'll be ready for a long nap about 1:45, 2:15, because that's that afternoon time is when you kind of.
Mine's like after lunch. Mine's like 1:30. Like after I've eaten, and it's like, oof. Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Jeff? I feel like you were getting ready to share.
My 5 second thing has been, since I don't work outside the house anymore, like when I get up in the morning, I shower right away. Like I just do it. But it's real easy to be like, you know what? I don't really feel like doing it because I may not have anywhere to go. I don't have anything to do, but I've been trying to just, like, if I don't, then it becomes a huge pain in the butt for us to switch the dogs around. So, because you can't leave Odin alone anywhere, as I've illustrated this morning. So I just force myself to do it. Like if I'm at that point where I'm like, I'm not gonna, and then I'm like, nope, just do it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I've been doing it more. There's still times that I think about it and I'm like, screw it. And I don't get up and execute. I actually have a question for you, Ellen. You indicated on one of my posts that you hadn't pulled the trigger yet on the Ruggables.
I know. I saw your comment. And he's in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I know. I saw it and I was like, touche. So he uses ruggable rugs that you can throw into the washer. And so like, I don't know. And Carrie said, I've been watching you for a year. And it was kind of about that time for me too, that I saw that. And I was like, oh, I could use some rugs I can throw into the washer, because our dog is a stinky dog. She just smells like it's oils and stuff like that. We've changed her food, we've done everything, but she's just a smelly dog, and that's okay. But it's not okay for my house to smell, right. And so so the rug, I was thinking, I was like, oh, we've had this rug a couple years. I haven't had it cleaned, and I'm just like, and it just gets so hairy, and I was like, it would be nice to be able to throw something just in the washing machine. I'm assuming that for those bigger ones, you'd have to take it to like a laundromat, like those big economy ones.
Yeah, the website has a chart about how that tells you how big your machine needs to be for the size rug. 8x10s are a little too. We can do it in our washer; it just doesn't get them clean.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
I've taken those to the laundromat.
So I've been looking at him online, and so then he posted a new one that he had gotten, and I was just like, "Oh man!" I'm like, "I really need to like look into this." And I said, "I've been looking, but I haven't pulled the trigger." And he said,
Carrie
"Finally."
actually named the rug that I had pictured.
I
She's had it
know.
apart for that long.
Yeah, yeah. She's like, "I've had that my eye on that one for so long." Yeah, yeah. So I might have to. We'll see when I get paid. We'll see.
I got
Facebook
one
account
because of Jeff.
What's
Oh,
that?
sorry. I
Go
said
ahead.
I got one based on your recommendations a year ago, and I love it.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Look at you,
I should
Mr.
be the ambassador. If only I got a cut.
or a free rug or something.
Ruggable home parties, direct sales. Woo!
Oh my gosh. All right. So are you ready, Lori? Let's get started.
I'm gonna have to read in hyperspeed now because it's 9:44. So
Oh my goodness. It's not going to take us that long to do this chapter.
no, I know. All right, ready? Chapter 5, Everyday Courage. I have learned over the years that when one's mind is made, this diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with fear. Rosa Parks. Before I discovered the 5-second rule, if you had asked me to give you examples of courage, I would have given you a list of history makers. I would never have said that courage is what it takes some days to get out of bed, speak to your boss, pick up the phone, or step on a scale. I would have told you that courage is a word used to describe acts of huge bravery. Courageous people, in my view, were the Nobel Prize winners, Malala Yousafzai. Sorry, I'm going to butcher these. Lima Gwobi, the Dalai Lama, Aung San Suu Kyi, Nelson Mandela, and Elie Wiesel. I would have thought about Winston Churchill in Britain standing up to fight against Nazi Germany, Rosa Parks standing up for her right to keep her seat on the bus, and Muhammad Ali, steadfast in his religious beliefs and refusing to fight in Vietnam. I would have been reminded of Helen Keller, who triumphed over her own disabilities to advance the rights of others, of Sir Ernest Shackleton, who overcame shocking odds to rescue the crew of the Endurance, or of Galileo, who challenged the Orthodox Church to advance science. But after using the rule for 7 years and hearing from so many people around the world, I have learned a very important certainty. Everyday life is full of moments that are scary, uncertain, and difficult. Facing these moments and unlocking the opportunity, magic, and joy in your life requires tremendous courage. Courage is precisely what the 5-second rule gives you. The rule gave Jose the courage to believe in his value and ask for a raise. Once he asked for one and got it, there was a surprise waiting in his next paycheck, a bigger one. The rule gave Bryce the courage to put 2 years into writing and publishing a cookbook, and he didn't stop there. He got Barnes & Noble to host a book signing. As Bryce puts it, you can achieve anything that you are passionate about and are willing to work for. What's even cooler, Bryce was only 15 at the time. The rule helped Martin push through 9 years of one excuse after another and slamming on those brakes hard to go back to school and pursue a second master's degree that will give him a more fulfilling career. Juanita learned to listen to her inner wisdom. Instead of thinking about a job search and a company her friend recommended, she picked up the phone and called right now. And guess what she got? Exactly what she pushed herself to go and get, a dream job. Learning about the 5-second rule was a turning point for Gabe. After realizing that I was responsible for everything that happened in my life, Gabe used the rule to change his life by starting his own virtual reality company. Today, he is creating the career of his dreams. Kristen's life has been forever changed because her boyfriend now has a way to battle his drug addiction. Whenever he feels the desire to go back to one of those drugs, he uses the 5-second rule to fight his addiction and retrain his mind. He counts backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to himself to trigger new behavior, and his mindset completely changes and he goes about his day. Courage is, in fact, what I needed to get out of bed. It was scary to get out of bed because it meant facing my problems. It was difficult to look myself in the mirror and accept the fact that I was 41 years old and my life and career were in pretty lousy shape. It was overwhelming to consider I might not be able to fix the situation my husband and I were in. Courage is what my daughter needs to put down the pen in her high school history class and raise her hand. It's what your team needs to escalate its concerns to you, and it's what your kids need to tell you what's really going on. Putting your online profile up on a dating site or blocking your ex on your phone can feel like an act of bravery. So can adopting new technology for your business or walking in the door of your home and facing your problems head on instead of pouring a drink and zoning out in front of the TV. As I began to write this book and started collecting stories of people around the world using the rule, it became clear that inside every decision, there exists 5 seconds of courage that can change everything in our lives. The more the word courage comes up, the more I began to wonder if there was something about one of the most historic moments of courage that would help me better understand the nature of courage itself. The first person that came to mind was Rosa Parks. You probably know the story of how Rosa Parks sparked the modern American civil rights movement on a chilly December evening in 1955 when she quietly refused to give up her seat on the bus for a white passenger. Her moment of courage teaches us all that it's not the big moves that change everything. It's the smallest ones in your everyday life that do. Sorry, that's my dog drinking. That's not me. And then she's going to walk over and she's going to ring the bell to go outside, or she's going to bark or something. So I apologize in advance. She's thirsty. All right. She didn't plan to do what she did that night. Mrs. Parks described herself as the kind of person who tried to be as careful as possible to stay out of trouble. The only thing she planned on doing that evening was to get home after a long day at work and have dinner with her husband. It was just an evening, like any other evening, until one decision changed everything. Curious, I dug in and researched everything I could find about Mrs. Parks, from the National Archives, biographies, radio interviews, and newspaper articles. What I found is incredible. Just weeks after her arrest, she gave a radio interview to Sidney Rogers on Pacifica Radio, and the National Archives website has a recording of it. Here's how she described that historic moment in her own words. As the bus proceeded out of town on the third stop, the white passengers had filled the front of the bus. When I got on the bus, the rear was filled with colored passengers, and they were beginning to stand. The seat I occupied was the first of the seats where the Negro passengers take as they on this route. The driver noted that the front of the bus was filled with white passengers, and there would be 2 or 3 men standing. He looked back and demanded the seats that we were occupying. The other passengers very reluctantly gave up their seats, but I refused to do so. The driver said that if I refused to leave the seat, he would have to call the police. And I told him, just call the police. Then the radio interviewer asked her the million-dollar question. What in the world ever made you decide to be the person who, after all of these years of Jim Crow and segregation, what made you at that particular moment decide you were going to keep that seat? She replied very simply, I felt that I was not being treated right and that I had a right to retain the seat that I had taken as a passenger on that bus. He pressed her again, noting that she had been mistreated for years and wanted to know what made her decide in that moment. And in the interview, she paused for a second and said, the time had just come that I had been pushed as far as I stand to be pushed, I suppose. He asked her if she planned it, and she said no. He asked her if it just sort of happened. She agreed that it just sort of happened. This is a critical detail. Rosa Parks didn't hesitate or think it through. It happened so fast, she just listened to her instincts telling her I was not being treated right, and she pushed herself to follow them. Since she didn't hesitate, there was no time to talk herself out of it. Coincidentally, 4 days later, in that same city of Montgomery, Alabama, on December 5th, 1955, there was another 5-second decision that changed history. The Montgomery Improvement Association was formed in response to Mrs. Parks' arrest, and a 26-year-old Black preacher was voted by his peers to lead the 381-day bus boycott that ensued. On being nominated to lead the boycott that night, the young preacher would later write, "It happened so quickly that I did not have the time to think it through. It is probable that if I had, I would have declined the nomination." Thank goodness he didn't think it through. He would become one of the greatest civil rights leaders of all time. His name was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was pushed into the spotlight by his peers. Rosa pushed herself. They both experienced the power of a push. It's a moment when your instincts, values, and goals align, and you move so quickly you don't have time or a valid reason to stop yourself. Your heart speaks and you don't think. You listen to what your heart tells you to do. Greatness is not a personality trait. It's inside all of us, and sometimes it's hard for us to see it. Mrs. Parks was described by all who knew her as quiet and shy, and Dr. King famously struggled with self-doubt and fear in the beginning days of the civil rights movement. Reflecting back on the radio that night in 1956, Mrs. Parks said, "I hadn't thought I would be the person to do this. It hadn't occurred to me. It probably hasn't occurred to you either what great things you might be capable of achieving at work and in your lifetime." Her example shows us that we are all more capable of finding the courage to act out of character when the moment matters. It is true, as Rosa Parks explained on air in that 1956 interview, that she was pushed as far as I could stand to be pushed by a system of discrimination. But in that singular moment, she was pushed forward by something way more powerful, herself. That's what courage is. It's a push, the kind of push we give ourselves when we stand up, speak up, show up, go first, raise our hand, or do whatever feels hard, scary, or uncertain. Do not look at our heroes in history, business, art, and music and assume that somehow they are different than you. It's not true. Courage is a birthright. It is inside each and every one of us. You were born with it and you can tap into it anytime you want. It's not a matter of confidence, education, status, personality, or profession. It's simply a matter of knowing how to find it when you need it. And when you need it, you'll probably be alone. It's going to be just you sitting in a meeting at work, standing in your kitchen, riding the subway, looking at your phone, staring at your computer, or thinking about something. And all of a sudden it will happen. Something will go down and your instincts will come alive. You'll have an urge to act. Your values and your instincts will tell you what you should do, and your feelings will scream no. That is the push moment. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to make a decision in the next 5 seconds. Dan is alone at his computer thinking about registering for summer classes. He wants to earn his college degree, but at the age of 44, the idea of starting as a freshman is nothing short of terrifying. Courage is what Christine needs as she's sitting in a marketing meeting in Plano, Texas. She has a great idea to share, but wonders, is this going to sound stupid? Tom is standing in a bar in Chicago. The moment he sees her, he can't look away. He can either turn back toward his friends and pretend to care about the one football game they're discussing, or find the courage to start walking toward her. The entire sales organization of a financial software company feels discouraged in Nashville. They've hit their numbers 3 years in a row, and quotas just got raised yet again. Alice in England needs to push herself out of the door to go on a run. She's inspired by her friend on Facebook, but feels discouraged by how long it's been since she last exercised. Halfway around the world, Patel can't stop thinking about a friend whose son just died in a car accident. He doesn't know what to say, and the thought of losing his own son terrifies him. He tells himself, it will be easier if I wait a few days, but the urge to pick up the phone, stop by the house, to do something lingers. In China, Tsai has just signed on as a distributor for a new skincare line. She has at least a dozen people she wants to call. She looks at her phone and hesitates. What if they think I'm being pushy? In Queensland, Australia, Todd knows exactly what he wants to do with his life, and it isn't studying law, it's physical education. But before Todd can take control of his future, he'll need to face his parents' disappointment. And Mark is lying in bed in Auckland, New Zealand, where it's 10:30 p.m. He turns and looks at his wife as she reads her book. He would love to make love to her, but he assumes she's not in the mood. He wants to lean over and kiss her shoulder, but he fears rejection. He needs something to lean toward her after so many months of feeling like her roommate. These stories are real, and they are just the tip of the iceberg. They highlight the struggle between our desire to change our lives and our fear of it. They also reveal the power that everyday courage has to transform everything. Seth Godin once wrote, a different part of our brains is activated when we think about what's possible rather than what's required. I believe the same is true when we think about being courageous. Rather than focusing on the fears that stop us, it's the difference between focusing on the solution rather than the problem. And the tiny switch is mentally liberating. There's something powerful about reframing my struggle to get out of bed, Patel's struggle to call his friend, a sales organization's struggle to embrace a higher sales goal, and Alice's struggle to exercise as acts of everyday courage. After all, courage is just a push. When you push yourself, you may not change the world, the laws, or spark a civil rights movement, but I can guarantee you'll change something equally as important. You'll change yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori.
Mhm.
All right. So one of the things that like kind of blew my mind and just like I thought was such a bold statement was greatness is not a personality trait. It's inside all of us, and sometimes it's hard for us to see it. I thought that was huge, and she kind of touches on that later, just talking about it, that it's our birthright. You know, I think that's really powerful. And I think that a lot of people need to hear that and understand that.
What I really liked was when she said, inside every decision there exists 5 seconds of courage that can change everything in our lives.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree with
I
that.
highlighted.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole paragraph after that courage is your birthright, I highlight the whole thing. You were born with it and you can tap into it anytime if you want. I'm like, yeah, I mean, just thinking about that and just kind of recognizing when you're having a moment, and we all have those moments of doubt, of fear, whatever it is, fear of anything, rejection, making the wrong decision, all of those sort of things.
I found it interesting, and I don't know that I agree with it. At the top of page 70, where they were talking about Rosa Parks still, and it said
Mhm.
finding the courage to act out of character. I don't know that that's necessarily out of character. I think that is. I think when you make those decisions and don't think about it or don't give it a second thought, you're acting fully within your character.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I I mean, maybe what she's thinking as her character is actually the way she behaved to fly under the radar, not get into
Sure.
trouble and all. I kind of agree with that. That's a good point, Jeff.
Because I don't think if it's not your character, you're not typically going to do it, or you will act. It'll be such a departure. I mean, I can see where they're saying that she's acting out of character, but I think it's acting. I think it's what other people view as your character, and when
Right.
you step out of that, that's I think what they're talking about more so than her actual intrinsic character, because all of that's built within you.
Mhm.
And I think she just stepped up, and I think Martin Luther King as well. You may call it peer pressure, but it doesn't matter what kind of peer pressure. If it's not within you to do, you won't do it,
Right.
or you'll quit partway through because it'll seem like Dr. King. I mean, if it really wasn't part of his character, he would have quit way before he was forced to, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And just the um just even like them talking about them not thinking about it, they just do it and act instinctively. I think that's where you are completely in line with your beliefs and all those things, that it's just a knee-jerk reaction. And sometimes you don't I think you're not even aware of the beliefs, some of the beliefs that you do have. Because we're definitely, I've been learning a lot about limiting beliefs, and I truly believe that we are definitely, there are a lot of beliefs that we have, like belief systems that we have instilled in us, whether we put them there or it was put there by things that we're doing, listening to, taking in, right? And so you don't even realize that's a belief until you're faced with that situation and you're just like, dang, I really believe that, like whether it's good or bad, right? And you're just like, I don't like that, or wow, I didn't realize I had that in me, right?
Well, and she said that she had been pushed as far as she was willing to be pushed.
Mhm.
I think we all, when we get pushed beyond our limit, it's kind of scary what we might do. Um, you know, in whatever situation it might be, we'll do something we don't normally do because we have been pushed so far.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I
I
think
like
we've all
that enough is
experienced a little
enough
bit of
thing.
that. Yeah, yes, Julie. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think we've all experienced a bit of that here and there in our lives. I mean,
Hmm.
I can't imagine somebody not experiencing that at times in your life when you're just kind of like, I can't take anymore.
Yes.
So I have a question. What is a moment of courage that you feel like you've had in your life? Like an example. I want you to think about that. Whether big or small, it may be like a huge thing. It may be, something small.
My husband online.
Find a husband online. That would
That's where I
definitely
met,
take a moment of courage.
that's where I met Scott.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, people had been telling me for years and years, you need to go online. You need, I mean, I had been single and not dating for 22 years. And people had been saying, you need to go online, you need to do this. And I'm like, no, that's just not me. And finally I said, what the heck? I'm going to do it. And that's where I met Scott.
That is courageous. And then even just
Cool.
showing up for the date took courage.
Yeah, that too. Not only that, I asked him to marry me 2 weeks after I met him.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I mean, if that didn't take courage, I don't know what did.
Hmm.
My goodness. I think the biggest step of courage, the leap of faith or courage, the thing that took the most courage for me ever to do in my life was to leave home and leave the Amish.
Yeah, I believe that, Lydia, because you didn't know what was
Mhm.
going to happen.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's huge. So, I love to look at my kids and see their acts of courage. I find that just so amazing. And I've always told this story about Ella when she was little, and some of the things that she would do to kind of overcome whatever it was, the fear, or if it was just a goal that she had. And it's interesting to see that, and to watch my kids, and I mean, just to watch them hold their heads high even in those moments where things aren't good, I'm going to use Ella as an example because she's an easy example for me. But she, like in junior high, she had this little boyfriend, right? Well, they broke up, not a big deal. They really were just like best friends that called each other boyfriend, girlfriend. And but she really missed the best friend part of it, and then she went back to school. Then he started dating this other girl, right? Not a big deal. She liked the girl, actually, and it wasn't a big deal. Ella kind of likes everybody until they prove themselves otherwise. And so then this girl just started wiggling her way into Ella's friend group and trying to put herself in there and cut Ella out. And Ella's like, I'm not sure why you're being this way. I don't care about Charlie. Like, I don't care about any of this. And it was just really difficult to watch. And I knew she was struggling, but every day she put a smile on her face and she just continued to put one step and foot in front of the other. And I told her in the beginning, I was like, Rachel, she's not your friend, babe. So just watch your back, and she told me, I said that about somebody else just recently. And she goes, Mom, you're always kind of right when it comes to things like that. I said, but I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I'm not in it. I have nothing to gain from this or lose from this relationship. So I'm not looking at it from the eyes that you are. But just recently, she's, both my older two kids are going through some big things right now. And life is just not super easy. And they're acting extremely courageous, and it's very inspiring to watch as a parent. It's hard, but it's inspiring. But over the weekend, I was sitting beside Ella's phone, and she had and she just left it there. She walked away and it was just sitting there beside me, and I was, I don't know, eating lunch or something, and it lit up, and I look over and she has a reminder on her phone that goes off about every hour, and it says, you're going to be all right. And I thought, wow, the courage that she has to just like
Wow.
even know that about herself, to be able to know that she needs to remind herself right now that it's going to be all right, and but that's just part of being a teenager. I mean, I remember some awful days as a teenager and trying to put one foot in front of the other, hold my head high as there were people at school giving me a hard time, or somebody disrespecting me, or whatever it was. And I think it's tenfold for these kids these days, because it's not just during that school day. It's on social media, it's everywhere. And it's very inspiring to me to watch our youth put one foot in front of the other with all, I mean, there are adults right now that are not behaving like adults, that are not treating people with kindness, of different nationalities, races, and backgrounds and whatnot. And it's just, these kids see this and they take it in, and but they're still able to make their own choices, and some of them choose right and some of them choose, maybe later they might change their mind and choose better, but it's just amazing to watch people that you care about when they're in those courageous moments. And sometimes I think they don't realize how courageous they're being. And I was reading this something in a group that I'm in, and they were talking about their child, their teenager, and they were frustrated because they were living like a hermit, because they were just letting all their anxiety get to them. And that was one thing, because Joey hasn't had the best school year, and at the beginning of the year he was starting to withdraw, and so I went to him and I was just like, you are courageous, and I did not raise you to hide in your room and hide the greatness that is inside of you from the world. And I was like, so you're going to put one foot in front of the other, even when it's hard, and you're going to do those things, and I'm going to be right there with you. And I'm like, but we'll do whatever it takes to help support you on an emotional, on a physical, whatever level that you need from us. But it's just, but those acts of courage, those every day, and some of these kids, it's just getting out of bed and going to school and facing their fears of maybe it's schoolwork, but I mean, for my kids, it's not typically academics, unless they don't turn in their work, Joey. But but
Ellen,
Not
Yeah.
naming names or anything.
been that way since kindergarten. Part of who he
but
is.
Ellen,
Hmm.
they get that from you.
No, they get that from
I mean,
themselves.
But what
They
I'm saying is, you set a very good example for them.
yeah,
I mean, they've seen
yeah,
what you do, and you are such a powerful encouragement to everyone, and they see that in you, and they draw that from you as well as from themselves. I
yeah,
mean, if you weren't as strong, and if you weren't the type of person that you are and that Eric is, they may not get that. They may not see that.
yeah.
And so you should take a lot of pride in yourself as well, because of who you are and how you're raising them. Because if you weren't a good parent, as what I've seen you to be in just the couple of years that I've known you, and just the person that you are, it could be a completely different result.
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, I know that it does have to do with the household, some of it. But they've got free will, and they can choose, to not act in courage. And so I have to give the majority of the props to them. But
Well, of course.
yeah, but thank you, Julie. I appreciate that. But it's so, and even as like with in Tupperware, right? When we see consultants, and somebody get up to train for the first time, that act of courage is just so outrageous to me. Like, that fuels me. It makes me take a deep breath and be like, maybe I need to be, I need to step into my courage more often, because it's kind of like we step into it and then I feel like we kind of step back, right? So we step up to a courageous moment, and then once we're kind of through that, sometimes we kind of settle back down into, the everyday humdrum, right? And then sometimes it's almost like we have to be triggered to remind us to step into our courage again, and because I think I definitely know huge times in my life when I've been extremely courageous. But I also know that there have been like windows of time where I didn't necessarily like challenge myself kind of to be created, like a courageous. Does that make sense? Do you guys feel that?
Yes. Yeah, I was sitting here thinking things through and I'm like, I looking back, I see much more courageous moments that I took, when like early adulthood versus now. And it's like,
Right. I need to
why did I
fix that.
stop taking those moments of courage? Like I need to step back into that. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we all have those, like maybe even some of our biggest moments of courage were from childhood, like we're in our adolescence, we're in our early adulthood when we were like forging the way and figuring out what we want to
Right.
do in our life and stuff. And it is easy to kind of like, just rest down into, just settle into it and not necessarily challenge yourself. So yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting to kind of sit and just take stock of that. Like, when was the last time that I really felt that adrenaline pumping? And then afterwards, you're like, okay, now I need to take a nap. Like, 'cause it took so much out of you to do whatever it was, right? That's the way I always feel. Either that I'm either like, I need to take a nap or like, I deserve a drink. One of the two. Yeah. Anybody else have anything they want to share? I think Lori does.
I was going to say, do you want me to continue reading, or are we only doing one chapter?
I think we're just gonna do one. That next chapter is a little bit on the long side. That's why I kind of was like, well, let's just start a dialogue because we still have a little bit more time. But yeah, the next chapter is a little bit on the long side. I don't think we can really finish it and be able to chat about it. Yeah, it doesn't have as many. This one had a lot of the testimonials taking up space. So I didn't think the next one really has as many. So, but yeah. Anybody else have anything they want to share about courage, examples of courage? Maybe something courageous you are thinking you might need to do? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, your way into it. And it is not courageous to order a Ruggable, just saying. It's not on my list of like courage things. I just need to do it.
I think I would agree with you there. That's a courageous decision.
Actually, you know what? Like, since Thursday, since the new system came on, I've been taking in a lot of information, from different sources, honestly. We have a lot of different chats, we've got a lot of different information. I've been taking it all in, but I haven't really like dug into the system. Like I started to look at some things, but when it first came up, everything wasn't up there, So actually, not that I fear technology, but actually sitting down and painstakingly figuring things out is hard for me. I would rather someone sit next to me and go, hey, you go here to get that, and you go here to get that. But I know that I have to know how to do that because that's what my team's asking of me. Hey, why am I getting this error? Why am I doing this? So, that's on my plan today to, really dig in to help with the problems, that people are having. So, just learning new things for me, I find as I get older, sometimes it's hard.
Yeah. And that's the courage to lead too, right there, because you're like, this isn't easy for me, but my team needs me and I need to do that.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? And I'm honest with them too. I'm learning as well. So I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of helps. They're not like, how come it's like, I can try to find out the answer, but I don't really know why you're getting this and getting that. But I think it kind of makes them feel like they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to go in and dig in and, so not that it's a bad thing. I think the new system's pretty cool from what I've seen. But a lot of people fight that, what they're comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to change. They don't want to learn something new, and then you get that negativity. Like, I don't like the way that looks on the screen. I like it better the other way. Well, sorry, this is the way it looks on the screen, and you'll just have to get used to it, So, and I think it's putting people off too. I don't think people are getting on because they're afraid.
Right. They hear about other people having troubles and they're just like, well, I don't want to deal with it if I can't sign in right away,
So I think there's a lot of people that have to find that courage. It's small, but it's big to some people, So You know,
Yeah.
that
I agree with you, Lori, because I've been trying ever since Tup Social came out. I'm still not using Tup Social because I'm afraid to go in and play and learn it. And it's like I need to 5, 3, 2, 1 my way into that because I need to learn it and I need to use it and I don't. So that is
sometimes
definitely
and sometimes we build it up bigger in our minds,
Right.
but it really is. Then you get in and you're like,
Oh crap. Like,
this was easy. What am I waiting for?
that's what I thought about Tub Social. Quite honestly, we had it a good solid year before I even played with that. Like I went in, took a look at it, I was like, no, not today. Like,
that's what I've
So,
done several times.
so
Sorry,
Lori,
Megan.
that's
Yes.
okay. So Lori, what might help you and your team? I went, I did a Zoom Saturday morning with whoever could get on, and I had 4 or 5 people on, and we went through Gen Con step by step on how to place an order, how to set up a party, how to actually place orders in your parties, how to where they go to manage their parties. We just went through all kinds of things, and step by step, I went through placing orders and showed them where the host gifts are and stuff like that. Like the little gift box shows up, and then they know there's host credits in there. I went as far as I didn't actually submit the party because I wasn't submitting that. But they asked questions as we went, and everybody got more excited, and everybody was like, it's not that hard, you know. So, and when you're going to do that with your team, it kind of makes you go through and say, well, because when they asked a question, I wasn't sure. It's like, well, let's see. One of them asked if you could, like when you're sending the link for them to pay, if it's going to their email, can you just click a button and it goes? Did you know you can do that?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. And I'm like, well, let's try it. And I did. You click the little, because I showed him where the link was, like you click on the little receipt and it copies your link. But if you click on the little envelope, like the little email thing, you just click on that, it automatically sends the receipt to their, or the thing to pay to their email. So it's like sometimes they ask questions that you haven't really thought of maybe, and the answer is very simple. And sometimes it's like, well, we need to get that answer, you know. But they felt a lot more comfortable. And then I posted that recording to the messenger group so that everybody could watch it and go through. So
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that's all it takes is just to carve out a little bit of time to do some things like that.
You know, the new system isn't completely functional and everything's not working the way we thought it would or hoped it would, but it's still miles better than the old one. Like my
Yeah.
worst nightmare was having to onboard new reps on my team and explain that system to them because, oh my God, it just was so cumbersome and did not make sense because it was so old. So even the way it is right now, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait till the first person I get to walk through this and train them because it's going to make my life so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Anybody else? I feel like Jeff, you kept trying to say something, but maybe not.
It's probably gone already. You know, that steel trap thing with the rust and the pitting and stuff, gone.
Gone. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. Next week we will tackle, what are you waiting for, people?
Nothing. I'm going right now to do it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Lori, get in there.
5, 4,
Get in
3, 2,
Gen
1
Con.
into Gen Con. Here I come.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
I'm gonna read ahead.
You're gonna read ahead?
Yeah.
Well, I'm on page like 140, so get going.
Okay. Is that
It's
a
a great
challenge?
book, though. It's a super great book. So,
It is a good book.
It is a good book.
yeah. But it
Yeah.
doesn't hurt to go back and, I like the discussion on it too. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Thank you everybody for joining us.
Have a good week.
Have a great
Have a
Have a
week.
good
good
day.
week.
Bye,
Bye.
thank
Bye.
you.